Both of them came towards the balcony. Cassidy said there is no one here. But then he looked at her and asked, "Isn't it cold?" She replied, "I'm fine." She looked at him and said, "You still treat me so kindly. Are not you reluctant about it? Don't you consider it a tale of my wild imagination?" Cassidy came close to her and said, "Irine, you are already my everything. How can I not believe you?" And then he started to touch her cheek and said, "All this time alone. I wonder how painful that was for you." Irine was thinking that even I don't know how I came back in time, but you believe me. Cassidy said even such endless pain has an end. He started to hug her and said, "Don't fret over it. There is nothing to worry about. Because I will be with you to the end." And then both of them started to kiss each other. After a kiss he said, "I will definitely make you happier than anyone else in this world ever can." With a blushy face she was looking at him and thinking that, all of this time, this must have been a journey to meet you, and this moment could not be more precious. If only I had not prioritized my revenge at the beginning, could I live happily? She said, "When everything is over, we will get married. Is that still true?" After hearing this unexpected question, he paused for a moment, and then he said, "Of course." She said, "Then we can do it now." After hearing this he was a bit surprised. With a bright smile she said, "Let's do it." Cassidy was looking at her, and then he hugged her. In a loud, cheerful voice she said, "Let's get married, Cassidy." However, their happiness was not for a long time. Someone was hearing their conversation secretly. The person removed a curtain a bit, and the person was none other than Damien. Irine noticed that someone was standing near the curtain, so she looked in that direction. However, she did not find anything. She was thinking that I thought someone was just standing there. Was I mistaken? But then suddenly loud voices were coming from inside of the palace. Both of them were thinking that what is happening. Irine said, "What's that noise?" While removing his coat, Cassidy said, "It got so dark all of a sudden, and it's cold, so wear it. And let me go and see what's wrong, so please wait for me here." She said, "Be careful, Cassidy." With a smile he replied, "I will." When he was going away he said, "Don't worry. I will come back safe and sound." Inside the imperial palace everyone was shocked. Sir Lumen was protecting the princess of Elsa. While looking at her he asked, "Princess, are you okay?" She said, "Sir Lumen, it's so dark." And then Cassidy said, "Sir Lumen, is it you?" Lumen heard it, and said, "Yes, it's me." Cassidy asked, "What's going on?" Lumen replied, "The chandelier fell down." While looking at it Cassidy was thinking that, was it an accident? Lumen replied, "Everything happened so suddenly." And then Lillian rushed towards him and grabbed his arm. She said, "Marquis?" With a crying face, she was looking at him and said, "It happened so suddenly. I got startled and I think I hurt my ankle. And it's so dark here. I think it's best to go outside. May the Marquis help me." Cassidy was looking at her, but then suddenly he noticed something, and rushed away from there. Lillian said, "Marquis, where are you going?" Cassidy came outside and he was looking around himself. And someone was holding a sword in the dark. On the other side Irine was still standing near the balcony, and she was looking at the moon. But then she noticed that someone was coming from behind, so she looked towards in that direction. Someone was removing the curtain. She was thinking, is that Cassidy? However, she realized it's not him. She asked, "Who is it?" Damien came from behind the curtain and stood in front of her. She asked, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm not here with any ill intentions, I just came because I was worried." She asked, "What's wrong?" He said, "I don't know how, but that chandelier in the main hall fell down." Irine was shocked after hearing this. With a sweaty face she was looking at him. Damien said, "I thought you were with Marquis Cassidy, but you are the only one here. Did your lover leave you alone in such a dangerous moment?" She said, don't speak of him like that. While moving his hand forward, he said, the one who can protect you right now is me. However, Orion hid his hand so that he don't touch her, and then she said to me, the Archduke is even more dangerous. She asked, why did you secretly bring a sword to the banquet? Damien looked at his waist, and then he smiled and asked, why are you afraid? Is it because you think I would harm your lover with it? She said, the way you are talking like that makes me think that you are completely healed from your heart disease. He grabbed her hand and said, of course not. He put her hand on his chest and said, my heart still hurts a lot. She removed her hand in a fast speed and said, I'm in a relationship with Cassidy. So, don't approach me in this manner anymore. In fact, don't even talk to me. He asked, was not it you who reached out? He was coming close to her and said, you were the one who came to see me in prison. You came to my mansion and intrigued me. And now you are rejecting me. Orion asked, should I be thankful? You approached me the moment Cassidy left me, isn't that weird? He smiled and said, the banquet hall is currently in shambles. There is dark and noise all around the hall. Even if a suspicious person is hiding there, it would be hard to see. For example, last time the assassination of the Crown Prince was an attempted poisoning. The culprit would do it right this time. Orion was thinking about it, and she said, excuse me? He replied, the sword will belongs to the second knight commander from the training hall. If you reject my offer, Cassidy would end up becoming the prime suspect. She asked, what are you saying? With a smile, he said, I only wish for one thing, for you to become my fiancé. She asked, what are you talking about? Are you in your right mind? Are you willing to harm His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, in order to frame Cassidy? You did not forget who was imprisoned as a suspect of attempted poisoning, did you? And would His Majesty believe your words, Archduke? He took a deep breath and said, well, it's so unfair when I think about it. He put his hand on her shoulder and said, there is someone who has a clearer motive for the assassination than anyone else. And in her ear he said, the Crown Prince of the fallen Hiran Kingdom. And he is your lover. With a scary smile he asked, are you sure Cassidy would still be safe? If that's revealed. She was scared after hearing this, and in her mind she was thinking that, how did he find out about it? He said, you rejected me for being in a relationship with that damned Cassidy. It is not an issue for me, because I am someone who needs to have everything he wants. She was looking at him seriously, and then she said, you can never be satisfied even if you get everything you want. He asked, you talk like you know me well. She said, I do. She put her hand on his shoulder and said, just how many people have you killed? To collect human blood for your medicine. After hearing this, Damien was shocked. Orion said the butler must have gotten his hands dirty. He laughed and asked, did Cassidy tell you that? He said, let me make something clear, this is not correct. Orion said, I hope you are not so foolish to think that you can do something without proof. She said, letting me see that person, Gil, who was once your slave. And letting me in the residence full of evidence, you wanted to enjoy my healing abilities. That's all your mistake, and of course, with a smile she said, killing me right here will only hasten the time for the evidence to be revealed to the world. And you probably know that, right? In anger he shouted, Orion? She said, you want me for my healing ability. His Majesty also knows it. Damien became more shocked. He asked, what? She started to move away from him and said to His Majesty, who is already wary of the Archduke, for him the murderous intent of the Archduke would be good enough of a justification. Damien looked at her, and he don't have any words to say right now. She said, the moment you touch Cassidy, that is the moment your protection will vanish. And then she left. He was trying to stop her by saying her name, but then suddenly he grabbed her from behind. He said, "Don't leave, Orion. I would not ask you to forgive me even if I could turn back time. I would make the same choice again and again." With a serious look she looked at him and said, "I am too." And then she bit him on his hand. He was feeling pain, due to which he made some noise. And then Orion rushed away from him. She was running away from him, and came down to the main floor. She was looking around herself, but then suddenly someone hugged her from behind. It was Cassidy. He said, "Forgive me, I was late." After seeing him with a happy face she said, "Cassidy?" But then suddenly she realized something. In a worried state she said, "Cassidy, you smell of blood." He replied, "Don't worry, it's not mine." In her ear he whispered there were some suspicious individuals who entered into the palace. After hearing this, Orion said, "This is Damien's fault. It's best to hide for now until everything becomes clear." She removed the coat given by him and gave him back. She said, "Damien knows your true identity." He replied, "I see." And then the workers started to burning up the candles. And someone asked them, "Where are you going to?" Both of them stopped. The person who stooped them was Damien. And then someone asked, "What's going on? Is anyone injured?" Both Cassidy and Orion were looking at Damien, and he was also looking at them. Someone said, "Everyone please step aside from the chandelier." The crowd were talking that, was this an accident? Or someone did it on purpose? Lillian said, "Oh my, where is His Royal Highness the Crown Prince? If something that happened to His Royal Highness." The Commander Lumen started to look around himself. While looking at the knight he asked, "Where is His Royal Highness?" With a sweaty face Damien was looking at both Cassidy and Orion, and then after a while he looked away and said, "Let's look for His Royal Highness the Crown Prince." However, the Crown Prince came and said, "Whom are you searching for?" "I am here." Both Damien and Lillian were shocked. Damien said, "Your Royal Highness?" The prince asked, "So the chandelier fell out of nowhere?" He said, "I was tired, so I was outside taking a breather in the garden. Soon after it went dark and Marquis Cassidy came looking for me. At that time Cassidy said, 'It's dangerous here. Let's go back to the banquet hall,' and now I am here." With a bright smile he said, "There seem to be many people worried about me today. The Marquis and the Archduke too." After seeing his childish behavior, Cassidy make a face full of anger. However, he was controlling it. The prince was still laughing and he said, "Only the wrong people who are out of place." Orion was looking at Cassidy and he said, "The debt has been repaid." The prince asked, "So is there an issue?" "Archduke." Orion was looking at him, and she was thinking that, "Damien, how confident can you be while doing such a mad act?" But Cassidy was able to protect His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. She was holding his hand and thinking that, now that His Royal Highness the Crown Prince declared Cassidy's innocence, everything is safe. Orion asked, "Marquis, did you find anyone suspicious?" She was thinking that the existence of the assassin will pressure Damien, and now you have to carefully weigh it. Or should we start a battle? Or can there be a brief truce, while we are holding on each other's weaknesses? Weigh the gains and losses of your choice. Damien was feeling defeated. He was not looking at their eyes, however he said, "I was very startled by the incident and was in full of worries. I'm simply glad Your Royal Highness the Crown Prince is well." Orion took a deep breath and thinking, that is most likely our final truce. Damien came outside of the hall and threw away his mask. In an anger he was thinking that, damn it. And then someone approached him and said, "Archduke." It was Lillian. She picked up his mask and said, "You can't simply throw your mask away like that." While giving him the mask, she whispered, "What's going on? You did not explain it all the way. Nothing happened back there. Marquis Cassidan suddenly ran off, didn't he? I guess he's really attached to Lady Serica then. In an anger he pushed away her hand and said, "Don't touch me so casually." He said, "Can't you hold on to anything then? So useless." He said, "There are so many eyes watching, but you are acting like a kid." She replied, "I am doing my best." With a serious look he said, "Don't cross the line, you are asking to be killed." And then he left. She was looking at him and thinking that, no matter who you are still a fool for one woman. After a while Cassidan asked, "The situation seems to have been resolved. Shall we go back?" Orion looked towards him and said yes. However, someone came towards them and asked, "Are you leaving already?" Orion looked at the person and it was Lillian. She said, "The banquet is not over yet. Let's enjoy it a little bit more." With a smile Lillian was saying, "I finally got the chance to speak with Lady Serica." With a serious look Orion asked, "To speak with me?" While smiling Lillian said, "The banquet hall is so noisy that we could not talk. And yes, I wanted to get acquainted with the lady." Orion closed her eyes and in a calm look she said, "Forgive me. I don't intend to become friends with you." Lillian was shocked. She said, "What?" Orion said, "I have no intention of being close to Archduke Damien." With a tricky face Lillian asked, "What does Lady Serica mean? I don't quite understand." Orion came close to her while Lillian was saying, "I have only shown kindness towards you, Lady Serica." Orion asked, "Do you really need Cassidan too? Isn't it enough to be a Viscount's daughter?" Lillian was shocked. She was thinking that, how did she know everything what I want? And then with a serious look Lillian asked, "Should I be taking this as an insult?" Orion said earlier, "You created such a scene that implied the Crown Prince in danger." "Indeed, it's such a coincidence that your act fits in with the Archduke's plan," she said. "Be honest." After hearing all of this Lillian said, "Well, I'm envious of the lady. A lady of noble birth with such beautiful looks. You even have an amazing younger brother." "Oh, of course you are no longer brother and sister, right?" She smiled and said, "But I am not going to lose to you either." Orion said, "Don't think of your beauty as power." Lillian replied, "I came from the slums all the way here in one piece. How do you think I got the opportunity to talk to you as an equal? And with that mindset, I can go even further." However, Orion interrupted her and asked, "Do you have a clue what's going on with the person you are attaching yourself to?" She again asked, "Do you know what kind of a person Damien is? You have been safe so far, but don't forget it's simple luck." Lillian smiled and started to move forward and said, "I have been lucky so far, I will be in the future too." Orion was looking at her, and then Cassidan asked, "Are you okay?" With a scary look in his eyes he asked, "Does that woman bother you?" Orion put her hand on his shoulder and said, "No need for that, Marquis. That's all for today, let's go back to our own home." After a while, both of them arrived to the Marquis' mansion. Inside the palace Orion was sitting on the chair and Cassidan was combing her hair. While combing he was smelling the fragrance from her hair, and then Cassidan asked, "What kind of a person was I in your previous life?" He hugged her and then she said, "Half a year from now, you would get noticed by the Crown Prince. You would become his closest aide and gain a lot of fame from fighting on the battlefield. That's how you would get the role of Commander-in-Chief." Cassidan said, "It feels odd to think I was so close to that fool." After hearing this Orion smiled and said, "About a year and a half after Damien and I became engaged, my father died in an accident. Afterward I went to visit the Emperor with Archduke Damien. When we were going to the Imperial Palace, Damien said, 'It greatly bothers me that the Emperor stole your godlike healing hands. You must have come here often with your father since you were young.' Orion did not say anything. With a smile Damien said, 'So the Imperial Palace must feel like home to you. This must be a happy place for you, so smile.' and then she smiled a bit and said, "All right." At the current time, Orion said, "Meeting you that day is the only memory I have of you. You were standing behind the crown prince. And I knew the moment I saw you that you were the infamous Cassidon everyone was talking about. However, the look in your eyes was too deep. At that time I turned away my face. And then at the current time, she looked in his eyes. Orion was holding his hand. She said, "I must have traveled back in time to meet you like this again." With a blushy face, Cassidon was looking at her. He said, "Thank you for finding me, my beloved." Both of them were hugging each other, and Cassidon said, "You must bath before changing. So shall we bath together?" After hearing this, her face became red. She asked, "Bath together?" He asked, "Don't you want to?" With a blushy face and smile she said, "I do, but, all right, let's do it together." And then he removed her clothes. However, after removing the clothes he found a mark on her shoulder. He asked, "Who? Who did this to you?" She said, "Oh, this Damien did. It was while you left the terrace for a moment." He started to kiss her shoulder and then said, "I swear I will kill that bastard." At the Sarika palace, Tol was feeling too much pain in his head. He was not able to hold anything. Sasha came towards him and asked, "Tol, what happened? Are you alright?" He was touching his head and thinking that, "My head suddenly feels like it's going to burst. What's happening?" This memory. On the next day in the morning, Orion was sleeping. And then Cassidon started to touch her hair. She opened her eyes and looked at him. He kissed her on the forehead and said, "You are awake." While rubbing her eyes she replied, "You woke up so early, Cassidon. I can't remember when I fell asleep after doing that." Cassidon put a small table on the bed. She asked, "What's this?" He replied, "I prepared a breakfast for you because I thought you might be hungry when you woke up." She asked, "Is it already that late?" While touching her hair he said, "You are such a sleepy head." She replied, "It's because your embrace is so cozy." And then both of them started to kiss each other. She was thinking that under the warm sun, this brief, leisurely movement felt so heavily. I imagined how happy our life as a married couple would be, but it was not time yet. At the imperial palace the emperor slammed the letter on the table, and then he said, "A barbarian like that dared to make such a scene in the Empire of Seville." The first commander was also standing there. He said, "I will go and take care of it, Your Majesty." The emperor said no. With a tricky smile he said, "The conquest of the barbarian tribe, Buren, shall be led by the second in command of the Knights Order, Marquis Deus. The kingdom of Hiren used to be located adjacent to the vast empire of Seville. But this fertile land was invaded and conquered by Seville. It then became the eastern region of Seville. And the destiny is like that. Cassidon must now go there as a soldier of the Empire of Seville." On the other side, Cassidon and Orion were sitting in the chariot. Cassidon said, "I will take you home and head out right away." Orion replied, "Okay," in a low voice. She was looking sad. He looked at her face and said, "Sir Lumen wanted to lead this conquest, but the Emperor apparently forbade him. He probably did that on purpose." Both of them were holding each other's hand. She said, "He can't do anything to me, so he needs to send you away." She looked at him and said, "Cassidon?" And then she started to hug him. He said, "Please don't look so sad, Orion my love. I told you before, this damned empire keep us under its feet to use and crush us. Those bastards are trying to separate us for their own greed, and I cannot allow it anymore. I have decided, I will become the emperor of this nation." And then suddenly after hearing this, Orion remembered the prophecy, did by the great prophet. The prophet said that the greatest overlord in history, who will have all of the kingdoms include the empire, kneel before him and roll all living things from above. She was thinking that Nosha's prophecy has never been wrong. But when I met him, he told me that the prophecy will face a new phase. And what did he mean by that? At the current time, she asked, Are you considering treason? With a smile he replied, no, I would not ever do anything that would make you sad or put you in danger. I don't want revenge. He put his hand behind her head and started to hug her. While hugging he said, from now on I only plan to go forward, with you by my side. For the sake of our future. At the Imperial Palace? While looking at the letter the butler asked, will this be alright, Your Majesty? This will result in the second in command of the knights sent for a long time. The Emperor said, but we still have Sir Lumen, and it would be best to send Cassidon away right now. Lumen said, but you said that it was only a simple barbarian tribe at the frontier. The Emperor was tapping his finger on the table and said, yes, conquering them should be easy. But something complicated has come up. Lumen was confused. He did not know about it. With a smile the Emperor said, many of our men have been captured as hostages. We are still figuring out what their demand will be, but we are dealing with a barbarian tribe here. It's clear that we will suffer unfortunate casualties, and I can't burden just anyone with this risk. So at this moment, Cassidon is the best candidate for this situation. With a sweaty face Lumen was looking at the Emperor. He was thinking that I was worried about this. But as expected, the Marquis is going to be treated unfairly for refusing the arranged marriage. But someone so talented should not be treated like this. I hope everything works out. On the other side Cassidon arrived at the eastern border. He was looking around himself. He was thinking that this used to belong to Hiren, now it has become part of the Empire of Seville. One of the head knights said, Captain, we are the Knights Order of the Eastern region. And then all of them went to the meeting place, and the head knight said, 4 days ago, many of our soldiers who crossed the border were captured, so we are unable to take any action at this moment. Cassidon asked any casualties. The knight replied some were injured, but there were no deaths. Cassidon was thinking about it that, I have heard about the Buren tribe. They are only called barbarians by the Empire, they have their own independent system. They never had any trouble with Hiren, so there has to be a reason for this incident. He closed his eyes and said, our first priority is the safety of the hostages. We must first analyze their demands. So, request a face-to-face negotiation with the leader of Buren. The conquest can come later. The head knight replied understood. He asked where should we hold this meeting? Cassidon said you may let them choose. With a sweaty face the knight asked, pardon, you mean? You are leaving this on them. With a serious look Cassidon said yes, I will visit them on their side. At the barbarian tribe camp, one of the barbarian came towards the leader and said, the Empire sent someone. The leader heard about it, and then after a while, the tribe leader and Cassidon were sitting for the meeting. Cassidon said you must have had a reason to attack our civilians, so please state your demand. The other barbarians were looking at him. Cassidon was thinking that this is odd, the people of Buren are supposed to be powerful hunters. So why are there some people here who don't look suited to be soldiers? The leader of the tribe said, I doubt the Empire will accept our demand. Because what we want is something that was stolen from us. He said we are not greedy like the Empire. Cassidon said you must be aware of the difference in power between the armies of Seville and yours. If this negotiation fails, your tribe will be annihilated. The leader said we are prepared for that. The leader of Buren tribe said, Buren is already crumbling. Just look at us, I'm an old man now, so do I look fit to lead a hunting tribe? He said you have invaded the Buren land and killed our young warriors. Then you stole the one who should be leading our tribe, you captured him like an animal, and dragged him away to be used as a slave. So we are here to take back our young tribe chief, and the matter of fact is that, the young chief is none other than Toll. After hearing this Cassidon was thinking about it, and then an old memory came in his mind. When Orion went to meet Damien in prison. At that time Damien said, I have a slave who has amazing physical abilities, and I brought him from a faraway kingdom. And then after some time when both Cassidon and Orion met Toll, Toll said, I can't remember anything. For Cassidon, all of these things are making sense now. At the current time, Cassidon asked, by any chance is the one you are looking for named Toll? After hearing this name, all of the barbarian became shocked and surprised. They started to murmur about it. The tribe leader said yes. Cassidon asked, was there a man with black hair and green eyes among the kidnappers? The leader replied there was, but how did you know? Could it be that you are associated with them? Cassidon replied, no, I am not. I will explain what happened in detail. But let me promise you one thing first. Your chief's safety and freedom are being protected at the moment by House Serica, who also happens to be my benefactor. The leader said, don't try to fool me with these lies. If you're telling the truth, why did not you let him go? Cassidon said, you must have seen it too. The drug that was used to subdue him was a powerful poison. He lost his memories due to the side effects of this drug. The Count's family saved him and treated his wounds, but because he was not able to remember anything, he was allowed to stay temporarily, that's all. I can promise that he will be returned safely. The tribe leader said, but you are not nobleman of the empire either. Cassidon said, yes, you are right, I used to be a slave. After hearing this, all of them went silent. Cassidon said, I was captured in the arena, but Lady Serica saved me. All of the soldiers outside know about this too. So, I will send a messenger pigeon so that you can contact him right away. And then the leader started to cry. He put his hand on his face and said, so he is alive, he's safe. At the Serica Palace, Orion was looking outside from the window. And Damien was standing outside near his chariot. Sasha was looking behind from the curtains. She asked, he doesn't seem to get tired at all. Do you think he will wait until sunset again today? Orion said, he is disgusting. With an angry face she was looking at him and thinking that, why is he still obsessed with me instead of her? I have been refusing to open the door for him, yet he would not leave me alone. She turned away from the window and said, Sasha sent a servant to the Archduke, and ordered him to escort the Duke to the farthest garden away from here. If he's armed, let my father know immediately. Sasha asked, you are going out? Orion replied, yes, if necessary, I would request help from the Imperial Palace. But she was thinking that, I want to avoid giving the Emperor an excuse to control the Count as well, if possible. She said, I'm going to visit Toll. In the meantime, could you get that clock ready for me? Sasha looked in the direction where Orion was pointing her finger. She asked, that clock? With a smile, Orion said, I just want to annoy him. After some time, Damien was standing in the garden. He looked at Orion with a smile. But then suddenly his smile disappeared and he became serious. He asked, do you really have to wear that bastard's clock to see me? With a smile, Orion replied, is it so wrong to wear the clothes of one's lover? After hearing this, he did not have anything to say. He was looking at her silently. She said, you came here without permission, so I thought you had something important to tell me, but it looks like this was a waste of time. Damien paused for a moment, and then he said, I'm sorry. But I knew I would not be able to see you, unless I acted this way. He said, I saw you in a dream last night. You were reading very earnestly. Orion asked, a dream? He looked at her and said, yes, a dream. In my dream you were very kind to me. You treated me the way you treat Cassidon. With a sweaty face, Orion was thinking that, it's strange. There is no way he remembers anything from his past life. He said, but you suddenly disappeared. So I searched for you everywhere. While wiping his fake tear, he said, I know I started this conversation, but I have no idea what I'm talking about. She said you could not have come here just because of your dream. You made sure to visit while Cassidon was away. What is your intention? While moving his hand forward to touch Orion, he said, "My intention?" She suddenly moved back a bit so that he can't touch her. But then suddenly he grabbed her chin, he came close to her and said, "You still have such rebellious eyes, but the problem is that I don't dislike it." Orion said, "But I hate you so much, my lord." And then she removed his hand. He said, "You willingly gave yourself to that damned slave, yet you shudder at my touch." With trembling hands she was touching the clock and said, "You are the one who forced Cassidon to become a slave in the first place." He asked Orion, "What can I do here to make your distaste for me to disappear?" Orion looked at him and said, "My lord, I finally understand now. Promising my future to Cassidon has given me the greatest joy in the world." She came close to his ear and said, "So I would rather die than be with you." After hearing this, Damien became angry. In an anger he said, "I am doing this much for you, so why do you loathe me so much? Just how much do you need me to give up for you?" He was grabbing her neck to kill her. However, even in this situation, she was smiling while looking at him. After seeing her smile, he became more angry, and then suddenly Damien's hands started to tremble. He was saying, What happened? What am I doing?" And Toll have grabbed his hand from behind. He have so much strength in his arms that Damien was unable to use his strength in front of him. In an anger, Toll said, "Let her go, right now." Orion said, "I can't believe how consistent you are. I wish we had never met in the first place. Then I would not have been forced to suffer something like this again. I hope we never see each other again." With a sweaty face, Damien was looking at her. Orion turned away from him and said, "Let's go, Toll. I should better call the guards." Toll was looking down on him. In an anger, Damien removed his hand. When both of them were going away, in an emotional state, Damien was standing there and called her name, Orion. That's all for today's video. If you want to know what happened next, then like and subscribe, Atler Animation YouTube channel.